Welcome to Geekland Halloween special. Woo! Hey everyone, welcome to Geek Rant and Happy Halloween! Obviously, today is our Halloween special. We're going to be talking about the original Ghostbusters movie from 1984,
Yep.
directed by Ivan Reitman and starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis.
Mm.
Sigourney Weaver, of course.
Rick
Rick,
Moranis.
Rick Moranis. Yeah.
Hmm.
Great cast. Okay, so we know Ghostbusters is a classic. I mean, if you haven't seen it, where have you been hiding yourself under a rock? It's a truly great sci-fi comedy film. We don't get
Yeah,
that
but I mean,
many sci-fi
no,
comedies, do we?
no,
But
and also a kind of horror as well, if you like.
yes, yes. Hence why we're on the
Let's
Halloween
let,
special.
let's not forget that important part.
But it's kind of endured, isn't it? It's
It
something that's been
has.
going for 40 years now. It's had
Yeah,
quite a few offshoots and
yeah,
spin-offs and
yeah,
there's obviously a reason why it's so popular.
yeah,
And I think that's part of our discussion today, isn't it?
yeah. It is. I think it's important. I always look at this film, and when I sit down and watch it again, there's always something new to see. For a start, it's
Yes,
packed full of stuff.
it is.
But I mean, I was asking myself this question because I watched it last night, and I was thinking to myself, why is Ghostbusters such a great film? And I watched an interview with Dan Aykroyd, and he was talking about how the spirit of the film, and
Yes.
no pun intended,
Yeah, yeah.
was is one of the main reasons why it's so great. And
Yeah.
so the reason what I mean by that is they were filming in New York
Mhm.
and had a very supportive environment.
Yeah.
It was the
Well, I mean, a
Reagan
lot of
era.
these guys were Saturday Night Live stars,
Yeah,
weren't they? You know, they were
yeah,
very prominent in New York,
yeah,
as a group, and I
yeah,
think that also adds to it, doesn't it?
yeah. There are crowds
Yeah,
in it at numerous different occasions, and they spend a lot of time in the streets, don't they? And you just see
yeah,
general
yeah.
people that are just filmed and passers by. And it kind of, although I'm kind of skipping to the end a little bit here, you see lots of crowds, and I got the sense very much that they were actually cheering for the actors, not
Yeah,
necessarily the cast. And I
yes,
think that's something that comes through with this film. It is just a big party.
yeah,
There's so much sort of fun had in this film, and they only had 13 months to make it as well,
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
the whole thing because they were
Hmm.
given like a 30 million pound budget, a dollar budget to make this, and they just thought, wow, what have we got? They had Dan Aykroyd's script.
Hmm.
That he's got a kind of weird obsession with a lot of that supernatural stuff anyway, hasn't he?
Yes, his father had written a book about the history of ghosts, and
Yeah,
was quite a prominent sort of character within that
yeah,
field.
the
And so it was kind
paranormal.
of, yeah, it's kind of passed down to Dan Aykroyd. I know that he'd come up with an initial script, but it was actually quite different from
Yeah,
what actually came to be.
yeah,
It was set in
yeah,
space. There were aliens. The Ghostbusters was a bit more sort of everyday, sort of like plumbers.
yeah,
And it was when they brought on Ivan Reitman who brought it back down to let's put
yeah.
this, one that's pretty
How can we shoot
unachievable,
this? Let's be
pretty
realistic.
pretty unachievable, with the
Yeah,
budget that we've got. How can we turn this into something? And him thinking about let's make it an everyday story about guys starting up a business, which happens to be a ghost,
yeah,
extermination sort of process, which was
yeah,
was
yeah,
quite a I think for me that's one thing I always really think about the film is everyone just kind of accepts that these things are happening,
yeah.
that the ghosts are there suddenly and everybody,
I think
I know some people are scared of it and
I
but
think there's a sense of entrepreneurship that sort of ties into the film in the sense
yeah.
that there's very much a at that time in the world, there's
Mm.
very much felt any people felt like anybody could set up any business
Yeah, yeah,
and make money from it.
yeah, yeah,
And I think there's kind of that 80s boom with lots of that. That's the kind of the
yeah. And they
commercialism that
kind of
comes along with
address
it.
things like the non-regulation of stuff. That their
Yeah,
whole business is got this massive containment units that's storing all these really dangerous ghosts, and
Yeah.
and they've got no permit to do it. They've got no,
Yeah, they just do it. They and how they built that thing, who knows? You know how they built their equipment.
I
This like
know.
nuclear fusion devices. You know, it's like where did that? No, we don't
Yeah,
care. They had them
yeah,
one minute they've got the packs. You know,
yeah,
we see
yeah,
Egon just tinkering with a few items every now and again, but otherwise it's like, how
yeah.
did you
There's no
create these? Like,
real
it doesn't matter,
breakdown
does
of
it?
that, or
Yeah,
creation story for the proton packs. And
yeah,
and one of my favorite bits is where they suddenly they got the proton packs, so they're going into that hotel, and
yeah,
they go into the elevator, and it's
yeah,
like, I just thought we haven't actually tested having a successful test of these
yeah,
nuclear packs,
yeah.
and they switch it on, and they both sort of go,
The
"Ooh."
two and Egon, yeah. Yeah, I think it was there's a little there's a poignant moment as well at the beginning of the film when Bill Murray says he's talking about this business that they're setting up, and
Yeah,
he's saying we create this amazing franchise
yeah,
that is going to make us so much money,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
based upon non-science, but in a way, what he was talking about, because they as a cast they were very excited about what the film was doing, and the
yeah.
potential. And in a sense, he was in that moment, he was talking about Ghostbusters as a
Mm,
franchise.
mm,
And it was almost like a statement predicting the future that
yeah,
Ghostbusters would be there as a
yeah, yeah.
recognizable product for many, many years to come.
Mm.
And I think that you get that vibe, the kind of the humor that runs throughout it. It is very much like, this, we are successful, and we love it.
Yeah, and the humor is really good in it, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty much a Bill Murray show, isn't it?
Yeah. He
He's
riffs a
got
lot though,
Ray,
doesn't he?
yeah, he riffs off the other two, doesn't he? He's got Egon
Yeah.
and Ray, who are both very scientific and talking about the side of all the spiritual
Yeah.
things, and then he's just coming
Yeah.
along and coming out with these great one-liners. And this, like
Yeah.
you say, I think that's the good thing about this film is when you watch it again, you pick up some of the other jokes that he's chucking in. And
Yeah. That sequence with Walter Peck,
oh yes,
expertly
yeah,
named character,
yeah, yeah,
Dickless,
yeah, yeah,
when they're
yeah.
in front of the mayor. So funny.
Well, I mean that actor William Atherton, he must
Yeah,
have
yeah.
been like, because at the
He
time
always plays parts like that,
he
doesn't he?
does, doesn't he? The sort
Yeah,
of
yeah.
really annoying, cringy, he's the reporter, isn't he, in the Die Hard
Yeah.
1 and 2, and
Yeah.
it's brilliant. I don't think he actually gets tired of playing those roles. It's kind of
No,
his
he's very
thing,
good at
isn't
it.
it?
He instantly goes red in the face, isn't he? He's like he's got this button he can press. He just
Yeah,
gets angry,
yeah.
and I just thought that was absolutely fantastic. I think whenever I see him in it, I'm gonna laugh. I'm already laughing when I see that guy. His humor is so straight, isn't it? It's like it's
Yeah.
hilarious, but
It brings that kind of reality to it, doesn't it? A
yeah,
sense of, there are people around them that are looking at all this stuff, and what the hell is this? The
yeah.
Ghostbusters, and
He's a
it helps
do-gooder at
to,
all costs. That's what
yeah.
he is.
And some of the, and that's how I think some of these films become so iconic, because they've set it in a what was a nowadays
Hmm.
society, New York, very, everyone knows what it is, but this otherworldly thing has come into that.
Yeah,
I compare it to things like Back to the Future, a
yeah,
time machine,
yeah,
that they got in the 80s, and it's all
yeah,
around, and yet it's such a good sci-fi
yeah,
movie, and
yeah.
I think that's what helps a big audience. They've got to have something that they can cling on to as being realistic. Yeah, it's priceless,
Supernatural
isn't it?
element is just
Yeah,
like, yeah, and you suspend your disbelief, don't you? You willingly sit
yeah,
there enjoying it, and it's nice because, as I was saying, you don't feel you have to justify this either.
no,
It's about enjoyment. It's about enjoying the characters and going along for the ride.
yeah, very
It's
much
kind of
so, very much
yeah,
so.
it's kind of outrageous in a way, but it's great.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
fantastic. And
it
in
is.
amongst that, they threw in most of the effects that they were doing as
Yeah.
well. Really interesting year 84, because some digital effects are starting to appear,
Hmm.
and they use a lot of analog effects
Yes.
within this
Yeah,
Ghostbusters.
yeah.
You have, for example, the use of puppets.
Yes. Yeah.
is fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think,
well, I mean, what had happened at the time,
mm,
ILM was kind of the only big special effects company,
yeah,
and they had done obviously Star Wars films at that point. They were
yeah,
working on the Temple of Doom, and so they couldn't actually do this film. But at the
yeah,
same time, one of their top guys, Richard Edlund, who was
mm,
who was
mm,
a real genius. He'd done
yeah,
a lot of sort of the machinery and helped build a lot of the
mm.
types of cameras and tracking systems and so on through
Yeah, because they were using
ILM.
Steadicam, weren't they? Steadicam was
Yeah,
being used, and that's like one of the first times it'd been used in a film.
yeah, yeah. And
Steadicam,
he'd come
so
up with ways of overlaying films on top of each other that you could create these images where it combines
mm,
the supernatural things and the everyday. And I think he'd come to the end of his journey with ILM because it suddenly, from being a sort of startup, it
mm.
became very corporate, very big.
Got the
I'd say
ranch.
exactly. And
Yeah,
he'd come away from it and he set up his own company off the back of this.
yeah,
He went in and said, I need 5 million to get this going to be able to do the effects, and took it from there. And so I can see a lot of the sort of Star Wars approach to things, the like you say, the puppets and the way they've
yeah,
done things. And I can see that that's a very big influence, isn't it, on the way they did it. And there
yeah,
was a lot of practical effects as well, wasn't there?
yeah, 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 yeah. That's the
Where the
yeah,
books and things are floating about, and you see the cards
fantastic.
flying out the
It looks so
drawers.
real as
It's
well.
because it's real. It is real kind of
Yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It is that. That's what I'm saying. You get that sense of this is actually happening.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's come up with mechanisms to make those cards fly out of the drawers, and
I think it was someone blowing down a straw or something and blowing
I
them
don't
out.
know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. But you'd have to,
yeah.
I don't know, you have to have a lot of puff for that.
You would definitely.
You would. But yeah, and so what that meant was, in a sense, that the guys there, they were having to react to those practical effects.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it meant that they were reacting in real time,
Exactly.
and you
Exactly.
get better responses.
Definitely.
You get the interplay with it, and that
That's why, I mean, you can watch these films now yes, all right, there's a few effects in it you think, okay, that looks a bit old and so on, but they still hold up so well.
yeah,
I think we'll look at some of these films with all the CGI and shit in them. Some of the ones that were the early didn't look good at all.
the
And
actors didn't know what was going on.
no, exactly. You didn't get the same responses, did you? And
Hmm.
and I think there should be just a general rule in filmmaking that if you can do it practically, you should do it practically.
Yeah.
It creates so much more, doesn't it?
We certainly enjoy it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think unfortunately that we have the younger generation that don't know much better, do they? Don't know any
No,
better, really.
no.
It's a
They
shame, really.
they used to look in the imagery that just doesn't look that real, does it? It looks in some respects too perfect.
Mm,
And I think that's
mm,
the thing when something's made by a person,
mm,
it's never going to look like it's made by a machine. And I
no,
think your eye just naturally
mm,
gauges that.
mm.
Like sorry,
Yeah,
I talk forever about these sorts of things.
yeah, it
You
is
know,
true, and I think that's one of the reasons why it, it's such a fun film. I
yeah.
think as well being 1984, they were working with one of the special effects guys was their cinematographer.
Hmm.
He worked on Cleopatra and numerous big films and was
Right, okay.
nominated for numerous Oscars.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
guy,
yeah.
I forget his name,
Hmm.
but he was framing up these shots
Yeah.
like at the end with with the building on top of the building, as if this is a temple in ancient Egypt.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He could
You definitely get
create
that
these.
feel, don't you?
Yeah, he could create this type of effect because it's classic cinema. This is
Mm,
like,
mm.
this. So that's dragged into this 80s.
Yeah.
It's left over. So what we're looking at is some beautiful cinematography that is supported by these amazing sets and they're using things like they're using glass with paintings and shooting through the glass and stuff like that. And these are old-fashioned techniques, and you get a real sense of a classic 1950s early color film with some of it. It's kind of it looks, and there are some scenes in like the ballroom as well where you got low shots and you're looking up and seeing this big wide shot, and that it's not at first you don't realize it, but what you're being is you're being taught some interesting cinematography tricks here. The fact that it looks so beautiful, and and it kind of makes it believable.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, little shot.
There's bits where they're on the street and they're looking up at the building, aren't they, near the end? And you can see it there, the doomed sky, and everything is happening at the top. And like you say, it creates such a good atmosphere, doesn't it? Of what the flip's happening up there? It's it's definitely
They hold those shots for quite a long time as well. So you're looking up at the building and you're taking in all this lightning and stuff that's happening, and before you've been looking at this for 1 or 2 minutes, which is a long time for a shot to hold an image. That again harks, but that is the appreciation of this the actual scene set. And I think that really plays into this and gives it a sort of a bit of a classical air. No matter how silly the film gets, there's still that kind of root in cinematic history that is dragged into the film.
It's always managing to get that balance, isn't it? Yes, there's a lot of silly stuff that goes on in it, but they still manage to maintain that sort of believability in some respects, don't they? It's it's very cleverly done.
And then, of course, the cast is amazing, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, originally, when Dan Aykroyd was writing it, he was thinking of John Belushi. And they were also considering Eddie Murphy. Because obviously they worked together. Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi had done the Blues Brothers and a number of other films and things together. Belushi was very popular at that point, and would have been, but
he would have been in it, but
unfortunately he died, didn't he? So it kind of changed quite a bit, from the original thoughts.
Because John Candy was going to play Rick Moranis' part.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
which would have been completely weird.
Would have been really different, wouldn't it?
Total different presence on the screen as well, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
Because Rick Moranis, I mean, he's so good in this part.
He is.
The way he delivers the lines it's just so funny.
I know. And I always laugh at the bit where he's walking around his apartment talking to all the guests, and he's talking to them and saying, "Yeah, look, I've got this. This is
explaining their financial history." The sort of thing nobody wants you to share.
And he says that, they're going through bankruptcy at the moment or something, and it's like, Jesus, man, now it's
it is hilarious. And he was so popular at the time because he did Little Shop of Horrors, didn't he? And Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and films like that. He was really kind of at his peak. Apparently he's super smart, the guy. Apparently he's like high intellect.
I think they are the.
He's got a writing credit on IMDb as well, actually. By the way.
I think these are these really intelligent guys play the moronic characters so good. They just nail it, don't they? They do. Like you say, they're so.
They know irony, and they
do.
And they have a real sense of it.
Yeah, because you look at him, you think, "Oh, this guy's a complete idiot," but then, like you say, he's a smart guy, isn't he? He's,
He's really intelligent, apparently. And Sigourney Weaver in it.
Yes,
it's easy to forget because there's a cast of boys, isn't it? But she really stands out in this as well. I mean, she was obviously hot property at the time. I think that she brings to it a believability.
Definitely.
Because the boys are being stupid.
And
she's there being
I think
serious.
there's pretty good chemistry between her and Bill Murray as well. The little repartee that they've got going on, him cracking his jokes and her having to sort of be serious with him and slap him down a bit it works well, doesn't it?
There were a couple of points where I felt like she was going to burst into laughter. She's pushing him out of the door, and his head pops back round the corner. She pushes him in the face. I don't think that was. I don't think that was scripted.
No, I know, and I think that's having someone like Bill Murray on set as well. I think there was a lot of times when they were using what his riffs and his little spontaneous reactions, There was a bit where he
He's
walks
it's
in
like
her
because
apartment and he like does the keys on the piano, and he's like,
yeah.
this really gets to them when I do this. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
exactly.
I like
Yeah.
brilliant,
No one
so
scripts that sort of
funny.
thing. I mean, that's
No,
like he was obviously doing obviously the Saturday Night stand up and all that sort of stuff, and
yeah,
he's
improvisation,
just
yeah,
doing a stand up half the time when he's in
yeah,
Ghostbusters, isn't he? He's absolutely
yeah.
he's chewing the scenery. He loves it. He just really does. You can tell. And the bit of it's funny because it opens up with him doing the tests, the psychic tests
Oh
on
yes,
on the
yeah.
two kids at the beginning.
But I think to myself, that is like the perfect sort of way of describing his character.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, yeah.
How that,
Very good.
he's lying, he's cheating, he's trying to get the girl,
Yeah,
he's causing some pain to somebody. It's kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
all the tropes that are kind of him, aren't they? He's sort of knuckled down into a good little section there. It was, yeah,
Yeah,
that
there's
is a
that.
great intro.
The point where they're guessing the cards, and the bloke says three
Three
wavy
waving, yeah.
lines, and then it's not your day today,
Oh
is it?
yeah.
And then he looks at the woman before he presses. He's going to press the button to get her acknowledgement. Do it. So cheeky. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's fantastic. I love that. Bill's
It's definitely a
character.
good intro. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a great score by Elmer Bernstein, and very classic. And I
Very
heard someone
atmospheric.
say I heard it said that this guy's particularly likes the brass section,
Right.
and there's a lot of brass in it to sort of characterful noise, trumpets and stuff like that, but also the organ at the end during that final bit.
Yeah,
Very
as they're kind of coming up.
Yeah. Halloweeny,
Yeah,
kind of
it is,
really
definitely.
hamming it up, but it works a treat.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it's and I think that's something else. So you got like the cinematography, you got the music, you got the cast. It just all comes together to create this
And
fun
the other
experience.
thing, the sound effects,
Yeah.
the sounds of the proton packs. I like the sound of it when they just turn them on, and it's that the actual,
Fantastic.
when they're using them. But then there's so many little things within it, isn't there? Little sounds of the ghouls and ghosts and things.
Yeah.
And, again, it's key, isn't it? There are set elements that have to be working with the film to make a classic like this. The music, the sound effects, the actors, the whole cinematography. Once you get those nailed, you're onto a winner, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think being older now, we can look back and see all of that. But I think I was 9 when this film came out.
Yeah.
So I was kind of falling into that perfect bracket for this film.
Yeah.
And it terrified me. I think that you have to remember now, but the scene in the library scared me to hell. I mean, I was like, I was terrified of that.
Yeah.
And then that set the trend, because that's in the first 10 minutes, and you're like, you're always looking out for that horror scene. But now you look at it now, and it's like a puppet type thing that comes out of the lady. It doesn't look scary at all, really. But there's there's a build up to it, and I think that's easy to forget that. It is Halloween. This is a ghost story, and it is scary. On some level.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And more the thoughts of something taking over the world. It kind of. But I love how they weave all the sort of storyline into it. This building is built with a particular Solarium, core, and all this sort of stuff, and all the sort of jargon they come out with is so. And Egon and
makes it sound real.
Egon and Ray are just spieling it out, and then Bill Murray's just like, "What?" Do you know what I mean? And he's supposed to be some respected doctor as well. It's,
with a couple of doctorates, It's such a great film, and I think I probably watch it every year actually, alongside Gremlins and Ghostbusters are like the two I tend to watch.
Gremlins not one I've seen in a while, actually. I need to get that one
Oh,
back out
it's
and have a look at
absolutely
that one.
fantastic. Yeah,
But
similar sort of.
but Ghostbusters definitely, and
Yeah,
I actually quite like the second one. I think people give that maybe a little bit too much of a harsh stick with that one.
yeah. I quite like the second one as
I like
well.
the second one. I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
good. I think
We'll have
there's
to have a look at that one.
some great stuff in there. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I watched the first, and then funnily enough, the other night the second one was on TV, so I watched that as
Was
well,
it?
and I was like, oh great,
Uh,
oh great.
yeah, there's some
Um,
nice, nifty little ideas in that one. I like
yeah,
it.
some good little ideas. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you haven't seen it, go and watch Ghostbusters. I mean, I will say, where the hell have you been living? But
Mm.
it's is a mighty fine film. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like the videos, and we'll see you again soon.